Hi, and welcome to our Q&A with Coach Rebecca Monday session. Today's topic is going to be about when you feel like you blew it, because I've gotten quite a few emails in the last couple of days about people who did not have the best state meet and now they are feeling it. So before I dive in, I'll introduce myself if this is our first time meeting. I'm Coach Rebecca Smith. I am a high performance coach specializing in ages 8 to 18, particularly individual sports. So I basically help kids identify the mind-body connection and strengthen it so that they can reach peak performance and maximum enjoyment. And I do this in a couple of ways. One way is through one-on-one coaching sessions over FaceTime or Skype. And then the other is through my online mental toughness training center at performhappy.com. So those are the two ways you can get me if you want more stuff like this. So let's dive into our first question. I always prioritize community members, Perform Happy community members. So if they ever send me a question and I want to respond in a more thorough way, I'll usually answer it here. And then also, if you guys are live and have questions, then feel free to put those in and then you guys will get second priority. And then otherwise, shoot me an email and it goes on the list. And then as I can, get through the questions, I will hopefully be able to get to yours too. So here's our first question. Somebody asked me for advice when every teammate qualifies for regionals and you are the only one who didn't. I messed up horribly on one event. It wrecked it for myself. Sat in a circle as my coach passed out all the regional Leos in front of me and I am crushed. This is a gymnast, by the way. Sure, I'm happy for my teammates, but I cannot compare to them. I'm the lowest scoring gymnast, but I try hard every day. I messed up. Now I go to the gym and watch them prepare for regionals, and I'm just there doing the same stuff to take my turn. They're not interested in me. Why would they be? Just go through the motions after regionals, not sure what I'm going to do that weekend that my entire team and all my friends will be competing. Gymnastics has been my life for 13 years. Maybe it's time to admit to myself it's time to leave. So I got this email a few days ago and I was like, let me tackle it live because I have so many thoughts about it. And then I got a couple more emails of people in the same general situation where they just feel like they fell short and they almost don't want to keep going. And it made me think kind of every time there's a big cut in swimming or there's a big meet in gymnastics, I hear of 1, 2, 5, 7 kids who want to quit. And these are kids who've put their entire life into training for their sport. I know swimmers who have, swam since they were 2, they go up through high school, then they're the only one who doesn't get to get on the plane and go to the big meet. And they want to quit. And I've seen this happen twice personally, where they didn't get the cut they needed and then off they went. They couldn't handle it. They felt like they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to look at those kids with the fancy, I went to Orlando cap because they didn't have one. And, they don't want to go to the gym and see the girls running around in their regionals Leos when you didn't get one. So it can be really hard to know what to do next. And when you're not having fun and it doesn't feel good and you've worked so hard and then you get let down, it feels like there's nothing left to do. So I'm going to give some advice first to athletes, then to parents, then to coaches. So for any of you guys listening, hopefully I'll cover a little bit for everybody. And if you have other questions, feel free to type them in or comments. I would love to engage with you. So my recommendations for athletes. It's going to be kind of hokey here, just bear with me, but use it as a learning experience. So you can always look back and go, all right, I made this big mistake. And if all you do is look at that and go, I'm a failure, oh well, what's the point? Then yeah, that was a failure. Then that's the end of the story. Like, you failed and now you're a failure, off you go. And that sounds super harsh because here's the other option. You can go, okay, I made a mistake. This is what I need to do to prevent that mistake from ever being made again, or at least to decrease the chances of that mistake being made. You can probably look back and go, well, this I could have done differently. This I could have done differently. This I could have done differently. My mindset was like this. I had expectations up to here. I was really nervous. I didn't get enough sleep. You can always look back and kind of piece it together and go, why didn't that work the way I had planned? And then you can change it. And then next year at state, you go, I get enough sleep. I practice those turns. I do what I need to do to make sure that there's no repeat performance like that. And then it's not a failure. It's just a step along the way to success. I know, hokey, but seriously true. It's all about the way you look at it. So putting it into perspective, that's the next thing I want to talk about. When you are up there at the state meet, which not everybody qualified to the state meet, and you are, the worst one on your team, does that mean that you're bad? Or does it mean that other people are great? And sometimes in the comparison, it's like, I always think about Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights. If you're not first, you're last. Well, that mentality is not one that's going to give you longevity in sport. That's one that's going to beat you into the ground. That if you don't get to regionals, then what's the point? If you don't win state, what's the point? Well, that's a good question. What is the point? Why do you do it? I'm guessing that you didn't sign up to do gymnastics when you were, 4 years old because you wanted to win level 9 regionals. I'm guessing that's not why you started doing it. It's probably because you like to swing and you like to jump and you like to punch and you liked your friends and you love jumping in the pit. And those are probably things that you still have, even if you don't get to go to level 9 regionals, And of course, for some of you guys, you're training for 13 years. You're like, actually, no, this is like the only reason I do it anymore is because I need to go and I need to get into college and I need this. And I've got these expectations up to here. And if I'm not going to reach these expectations, then what is the point? And that's the question I ask you. What is it? Why do you do it? For you swimmers, why do you get in the pool at 5 a.m. every morning? Why do you do that? Probably not just to go to Orlando. It's probably because your friends are there and you and I'll talk about this a little bit more with the parents, but there are reasons why you do it. And you can't lose sight of those just because you had an upset or just because you're now comparing yourself to everybody else. So that's my question to you is what's the value of sticking it out? What would you be missing if you didn't do it anymore? What wouldn't be there anymore? That question of like, why did you get started? And when you're doing a sport like this at the elite levels and you're invested in this, or even sub-elite, even recreational, there's something that keeps you going. So my request for you is that you figure out how you find meaning and enjoyment in it for its own sake. When you get up on the beam, are you on the beam only to win regionals? No. You're on the beam to perfect your skills, to gain mastery, to experience yourself. Who am I when I'm on a winning streak? Who am I when I'm on a losing streak? Do I like the person that I am? Do I want to be something different? Do I want changes to happen? And do I want to keep improving? Yeah, probably. Not just do I win regionals. So I know I'm like a broken record on that, but that's a lot of why we do anything. If I can pull weeds in my backyard and find experience and enjoyment and self-discovery and meaning in just, pulling weeds, then I can do that in practice, in competition, on a good day, on a bad day. I have a friend who used to always say, chop wood, carry water, chop wood, something like that. Please excuse my terrible metaphor, but it's, you have a good day, chop wood, carry water. Have a bad day, chop wood, carry water. Move on. Keep doing what you're doing and find meaning and enjoyment in everything, not just the wins. That's the key. And that is the difference between an elite athlete and a non-elite athlete. And now here's my favorite little tip, and I stole this from Michael Gervais, who's a guy who I really look up to in the sports psychology field. He was the sports psychologist for the Seahawks. Fantastic, really smart guy. He recommends that you develop a filter. And that filter for you athletes, now this kind of goes back to our, I feel like every single conversation I've had has been about mean coaching, yelling coaches. Well, if you, so that's another question that I got. One of those three was, a girl she made a big mistake on one of her events, and her coach at the meet started pointing his finger at her and yelling at her and putting her down, and she's in tears because he's like, you are a disappointment and you messed up and how dare you and you're not even listening and what's the point? And he was giving her that whole discussion that she's basically having in her head already and just upping it to the nth degree. So when you're in that place, you got to develop a filter. So for example, if your coach is saying to you, oh my gosh, I can't believe you made that mistake again. All you need to do is get your chest up on the board of the vault, and then, but if you don't ever do that, you're never going to be able to do it the next level. You're never going to get this. What is the point of me even coaching you if you're not listening? Like, ugh, it like hurts me to talk like that. But I've heard that, and you know what? I've probably said things like that back when I was coaching, because it's just this culture, you know, of this is how coaches talk to athletes. You get them moving. So what a person with a filter would hear is not the things that put you down and make you feel like it's impossible, but you hear, get your chest up on the board. And that's it. You listen for the things that will help you to become a better athlete. You take those in, you absorb them. And then all the other stuff that takes the possibility out, that takes the fun out, that takes the goodness out, you just let those bounce off your filter. Because there are things that come out of your coach's mouth that are helpful. You know, okay, and that bar routine, if you would have done what I asked you to do, you big dumb idiot, or whatever, you know, whatever the coach is saying. But the thing I asked you to do is lean your shoulders over and push. So you just go, okay, lean your shoulders over, push, got it. Let go of all the rest of the stuff, just filter it out, you know, because elite athletes, the top athletes, it's not that they don't get criticized. Everybody gets criticized. We get criticized at youth. We get criticized in high school. We get criticized in college. We get criticized in pro. There's so much criticism coming at high-level athletes that you've got to develop a filter, and you've got to develop it young. So that when your coach comes at you with something nasty like that, it's a practice for your filter. All right, filter up. What do I need to get? Okay, point your toes. Cool, moving on. You know, and don't take it all to heart like that. So, moving on to parent suggestions. What is the importance of sport from your perspective? Why do you do it? Why do you even sign your kid up and pay the tuition? Why? Well, my guess is one of probably three things. So they can have fun, develop character. That's probably the big one. Develop character and have a physical activity. Get some of that energy out. Give them something to do so they're not just running around crazy in your house. That's why I put my kid in. You know, I want her to work hard and learn about herself, have fun, be active, and, you know, develop character. So when things don't go so well, she learns how to handle things in school and beyond. So your job is to kind of support those things. And if they have any of them, if they have fun, or they develop character, or they get some physical activity, there's a win. If you get 2, even better. If you get 3, that's what we're really aiming for. But your job as a parent is to focus on those things. And something I say all the time, but it bears repeating, is that you've got to praise effort and not outcomes. Because a lot of what starts this whole issue is that we are so outcome focused as coaches, as parents, as a culture. You know, go out there and win, score a goal and we'll get you ice cream. You know, it's like there's this, if you do something great, then we'll reward you. But what if you show up and you work your butt off and you make a mistake and you don't make it? Well, parents, it's your job to say, wow, you've worked so hard this season. I'm so proud of you. Instead of like, oh gosh, you really screwed that one up. You know, they're thinking that, I guarantee you. So you don't ever have to say that. You don't ever have to point out what they've done wrong, what the mistake that they've made, what they could have done better. Believe me, they already know. So your job is to go, wow, you've worked really hard. Let's go have some lunch. And another thing for parents, we know as adults that it doesn't matter that much what people think of us. You know, when you're 12 or 14 or 16, it's pretty much life and death if somebody doesn't like you. I've even been guilty of that, you know, it's hard. It's hard to feel like you're not liked. It's hard to feel like you're not perfect. It's hard to feel like, you know, people think of you negatively. You know, if I fail, if I don't make it, my coach is going to think, you know, whatever. My parents are going to think this. My teammates are going to think this. I'm the only one. People are going to think that I'm so bad. Well, we know as adults that what people think of us is actually not that important. It's really not that important because A, we can't even really realistically predict what they think. So we're just making up stories in our head anyway. And B, who cares? You know, if somebody doesn't like me, that's okay. I could still like me. You know, my husband still likes me. My kid likes me, hopefully. So, you know, it's like not making it such a big deal about being liked is something that you guys can help too. Of course, it's a lifelong process with that. Finally, for parents, help them remember the commitment to the teammates. And of course, you know, my friend who sent in this question, she said, yeah, I'm really happy for my teammates. But it's good to really dwell on that. You know, if you're showing up in the gym like this, like, ugh, why am I even here? Everybody's better than me. you're sure not helping them get ready for their competition. And if the tables were turned and one of your teammates was over there huffing and puffing, that would be a bummer, especially if you're like, gosh, I feel bad that she's my friend. I wish she was going, and now, okay. So now on to coaches. One thing that I recognized when I worked with a swim team was that these coaches who had coached Olympians and very high level athletes, they saw that a certain type of person was motivated by the outcome. And they were like, you got to win, you got to qualify, you got to get this time, you could do it, new team record. They were really all about outcomes, which is pretty normal and something that motivates some people. But then that was about half the team. And half the team was motivated by outcomes because they were actually reaching these outcomes, which is a combination of, they were thinking positively, they were taller, they were stronger. And then there's these other kids that are not as motivated by outcomes and they're not getting the outcomes. So it's like this twofold problem where then there's half the team that feels bad about themselves and half the team that's like strutting around like they're hot stuff. So half of your team is having a bad time because there's so much focus on outcomes. Whereas if it was about effort, this half that's not making it, they're working. Well, they were working hard until they realized they weren't in that upper group. So what's the point anyway? So if you can put more emphasis on effort, then it's definitely going to be a win for everybody. And I was thinking about, what's better, being the best kid on a losing team or being the worst kid on a winning team. And sometimes that's an issue where, you get moved up to a group and you're the worst one in a really good group, or you don't get moved up and that's a bummer, and then you're the best one in a group of kids who don't really care. And either way, there are pros and cons. So it's kind of about embracing, as an athlete, it's embracing where you end up. Because there are, if you're the best one in the group, you get to be the leader. If you're the worst one in the group, you get to work your tail off and have something to aspire to. So, instead of going, well, this is the worst case, you just accept where you fall and move forward. And then coaches, make sure you're not doing anything to divide the team, and you probably won't notice. Kids are crafty and slippery and slimy with each other, especially girls. They're so underhandedly dramatic. So just do your best to not do anything as far as outcomes to divide the team any further. And then coaches, don't say anything that's going to need to get filtered out. Don't say the things like, oh, I've told you this 100,000 times. Just say, hey kid, get your chest up on the board. Good try. It's easier said than done, but that's definitely what I recommend. So, I have a screaming toddler entering, so I'm going to call that the end of the day. You guys feel free to reach out to me at performhappy.com and send me your questions at rebecca@performhappy.com. If you want to join us, performhappy.com, we are taking members right now. All right, looking forward to coming back next week. Bye.